calls this home? Do you ever wonder where it's headed and what it might become? I do. Tonight, I'd like us to think about our changing world not as a place, but as a story. A story with 7 billion human characters who inhabit a setting that's vast and varied and beautiful. Now, we're not only characters, we're also authors. And each day, we write a new chapter about our lives and our communities. Eventually, we get older, and we turn to our children, and we hand them the pen. And we say, here, it's your turn. Now you take on the story. The next chapters are in your hands. And that's a pretty big demand because the fact is, we're handing our kids some pretty tough plots. A changing environment, inequality, a world with too much violence. But the good news is the story's not done yet. There's still time to shift the plot towards equal opportunity, thriving communities, a healthy environment. We've brought our kids to a crossroads, and we're asking them to choose. The stakes are high, and they know it. And they're asking us, where are you leading me? What story are you teaching me to write? That's a big question. Now, every educator I know wants the positive plots for their kids. They want them to be happy, healthy people, caring neighbors, loving family members. They want them in thriving communities and a peaceful world. It's a fantastic vision. There's just one problem. It's not on the test. The fact is, schools are not held accountable for creating happier stories. They're held accountable for test scores. And that's not a criticism of schools or educators. They're held hostage by policies that define and measure success in very narrow ways. Now, don't get me wrong, we need the academics. We're handing our kids huge challenges, and they won't be able to handle them without a command of every discipline. But when we build curriculum around tests, deep thinking gives way to shallow questions with only one right answer. Kids get facts, but not meaning. They get data, but no wisdom. And this creates a wicked tension between what we want for our kids and the short-term demands of the test. That disturbs me. I've wrestled with that for a long, long time. And then it hit me. What if we could do both? What if we had curriculum that gave kids the mastery they need to create the stories they want? It's not only possible, it's happening. I want to give you 2 examples here from the Ypsilanti Community Schools. For the past couple of years, I've had the great pleasure of partnering with the district. And I want to share 2 examples from the middle school. The first one concerns the Ancient Civilizations course. Now think about it. What could be less relevant to a 7th grader than the aqueducts of ancient Rome? Well, these teachers did something brilliant. They turned the stories of the past into lessons about Ypsilanti's future. They asked the kids, what made these civilizations rise and fall? What happened to Egypt's agricultural economy when the Nile dried up? What's going to happen to our agricultural economy as climate change advances? Now there's a story, and kids saw themselves in it and they dove in. And they made amazing connections. For example, after studying labor issues in ancient Rome, one girl wanted to know if the city of Ypsi was using local labor for the road projects. Good question. The course was full of those kinds of insights, and as a culminating event, we had a community sustainability summit. Maybe some of you were there. We brought together the mayor, the township supervisors, and leaders from public health, public safety, the Huron River Watershed Council, and they got a chance to talk with kids and the families about the possible plots, the emerging solutions in Washtenaw County. And in this way, kids start to see the possibilities. Now, of course, the academics are a big part of it, and we gave the kids a very rigorous pre- and post-test. And we saw growth of 20, 30, 40%. A great example of doing both. Academic mastery for the story we want. The second example is more remarkable. The year before, some of the same teachers took the US history course, and they integrated institutional discrimination, racism, and the struggle for equality. I'm not talking about the diversity posters, kumbaya, and a group hug. I'm talking about the big questions. The kids wanted to know why the city of Ypsilanti is 30% African American, but the school district is about 70%. That opened up the analysis of segregation, white flight, and the policies that enabled it. And by understanding how we got here, kids were able to start a new story about respect and understanding in their own classrooms. How do we break down the barriers? How do we stop the false stories about each other? How can we resolve conflicts differently? And they wrote and spoke about it so beautifully. And again, the academics were huge. We gave the kids another very rigorous test. This one had a written essay. The scores on that went up 95%. That is astounding. We can't hear a reasoned conversation about race from adults these days. It's very rare. But to bring middle school students into this depth of material with those kinds of results and double their writing along the way, this community is blessed with talented educators. This is what's possible. Now, these are just two examples in one community and one school. But I've witnessed these kinds of transformations in classrooms across the country, in every discipline, in every grade. It's time to change the narrative of curriculum itself. As we think about what we're going to be teaching our kids, the kind of courses we're going to offer, we need to stop asking, is it on the test? And start asking, what kind of stories do we want our children to write? What kind of authors do we want them to become? The stakes are incredibly high, but each of you has a piece of the positive story. Each of you has something to offer that can help shift the narrative. We need to give our kids our knowledge, our vision, and our wisdom, because our children can only create the stories that we teach them to write. Thank you.